Hey, what's going on, guys? Today I'm going to be explaining to you graphic settings that you'll find on PC games and maybe even in some other places such as Vsync, Ambient occlusion, Antialiasing, and Subtropic filtering. So one of the things that you usually see right near the top of any graphic settings list is Vsync, or vertical synchronization. And what this does is it allows you to limit the number of frames per second that your graphics card is producing. And you may be thinking, why would I want to limit the FPS of my game? Isn't more FPS more powerful and more fluid gaming experience? Yes, that can be true, but most monitors can only handle 60 frames per second. Now here's an example of why you'd want to turn it on. So let's say your graphics card is producing 100 frames per second, but your monitor can only take 60. So if you take a look at this picture here, you can see that the urinal is a little bit displaced right here. And the reason that's happening is because your graphics card is producing more frames faster than your monitor can accept it. So to prevent this, you turn on Vsync, which limits your frames to whatever your monitor refresh rate is and eliminates tearing, which is what this is. Another thing you'll see in your graphics settings is ambient occlusion. What ambient occlusion does is it affects the lighting and shaders in your game to give it a more realistic lighting effect. Meaning it makes shadows more realistic and shading more realistic. So as you can see, this is sort of hard to tell the difference, but if you look down this hallway, you can see that it's very bright. There's no real difference in the way the floor looks because it's off on this side. And over here, you can see there's a darker shadow cast because the light wouldn't be able to get there, and it renders the scene more realistically. In your graphics settings, you'll also probably see, and forgive me if I say this wrong, is anisotropic filtering. And essentially, what this does is it makes objects that are at a distance render in nicer. And you can see a little bit more clearly what I'm saying by looking at this image right here. As you can see on the left side where there's no filtering, the lines as they go farther just sort of turn into blurs. And where there is filtering, you can see the lines still continue to be lines. And this makes for a more fluid gameplay experience. Instead of walking down this road and having the lines sort of load in as you get closer to them, you can just walk down the road and not really see as much as change in your environment, making it a more immersive experience. Another example of this would be trees in games. Have you ever been walking far away from a tree and it sort of looks like a jumbled mess, and as soon as you get close it sort of renders in? Well, this sort of takes out that abrupt change in scenery and makes everything more fluid. One of the best ways to clean up the visuals of your game is with anti-aliasing. And what anti-aliasing does is it smooths out jagged textures, as you can see in this photo here, and jagged edges, and makes things look smooth and nice. The way anti-aliasing works is when your game loads in a scene, it loads in the textures at a higher resolution than your monitor will display them, leading them to look smoother and nicer. Or it can work as post-processing or post-anti-aliasing, and what that does is it loads in the textures normally, but it blurs the lines on the edges, still smoothing everything out. Post is usually less stressful on your system. And that's about it. So if you think this video helped, be sure to like and subscribe. Leave a comment if you have a question. You guys have a good one. Peace out.